The envelope hit the kitchen table like a gunshot, its wax seal cracking under the weight of my grandfather's trembling fist. "Read it, Ian," he rasped, his voice a gravelly echo from decades of chain-smoking camels in Cleveland's steel mills, eyes locking onto mine with the ferocity of a man who just clawed his way back from the grave. I unfolded the yellowed paper, heart slamming against my ribs, and the words blurred through tears I hadn't earned yet. "To my blood, my betrayers, your greed ends here." That was the night everything shattered. The night my parents' carefully constructed empire of lies crumbled like the Rust Belt factories Grandpa had slaved in for 40 years. But let's back up, because to understand the knife twist of betrayal, you have to know the slow bleed that led us here. My name's Ian Harper, 28 years old, a graphic designer scraping by in a one-bedroom walk-up in downtown Columbus, Ohio, close enough to the heartland to feel its pulse, far enough from the suburbs to breathe without choking on family expectations. I grew up in that cookie-cutter hellhole of manicured lawns and minivans in Worthington, the kind of place where dads grill brats on Memorial Day and moms pretend the opioid crisis is just a phase for the neighbors. My folks, Richard and Linda Harper, were the picture of Midwestern success. Dad climbing the ranks at Nationwide Insurance, Mom flipping houses into McMansions for upwardly mobile families. They were the ones who'd beam at PTA meetings, whispering about college funds and 401(k)s. But behind closed doors, it was all spreadsheets and size, measuring love in ledgers. I came out at 17, a fumbling confession over lukewarm meatloaf that landed like a dud firecracker. Dad's fork paused midair, his face paling like he'd swallowed a bad oyster. "Ian, son," he said finally, voice steady as a boardroom pitch, "we love you, but this is a detour. You'll straighten out." Mom nodded too fast, her pearls clinking like wind chimes in a storm, offering church pamphlets on healing, as if my heart was a leaky faucet. They never disowned me, not outright, but the chill settled in, a frost that coated every holiday dinner. I learned to smile through gritted teeth, to field questions about that nice girl from work, while my soul screamed for authenticity. College at Ohio State was my escape hatch. Art classes where I could pour my chaos onto canvases. Late nights at the Union grinding pixels into logos for startups that paid in ramen and regret. That's where I met Adam. Adam Riley, Irish firecracker with freckles like scattered constellations and green eyes that could disarm a SWAT team. He was a poli-sci major, all sharp debates in the Rathskeller over cheap IPAs, railing against corporate greed and climate denial like he was born with a picket sign in his fist. We collided at a Queer Alliance bake sale, me hawking rainbow cupcakes I'd burned the edges on, him volunteering with that lopsided grin that made my knees buckle. "These look like they survived a revolution," he teased, biting into one and pretending to choke dramatically. I laughed, real belly deep, and for the first time I felt seen, not scanned for flaws. Our first date was a disaster in the best way. An indie flick at the gateway that glitched halfway through, leaving us in the dark with nothing but each other's whispers and the scent of buttered popcorn. We ended up wandering the Scioto Mile, the river glittering under Columbus's skyline like fool's gold, talking until the bars closed. He confessed his own scars, Catholic guilt from a Dublin-born dad who still sent passive-aggressive Bible verses via email, and I spilled about the family fridge magnets that read "Proud Parents of," but skipped my name. By dawn, as we shared greasy diner fries on a bench overlooking the Olentangy, his hand found mine, fingers lacing like they'd always known the way. "Ian," he murmured, breath warm against my temple, "you're not a detour, you're the whole damn road." We built from there, brick by tentative brick. Adam graduated and landed a gig at a nonprofit in Dublin. Yes, the Columbus suburb, not the Emerald Isle, fighting for tenant rights in eviction spiking post-recession. I freelanced enough to cover rent, our apartment a cozy chaos of thrift store frames holding photos of us at pride parades, his law books stacked beside my sketchpads. Weekends were ours. Hikes in Hocking Hills where he'd chase me through fern-choked trails, laughing until we collapsed in sun-dappled clearings. Quiet evenings on the balcony with craft brews, debating everything from Bernie Sanders to the ethics of pineapple on pizza. Love, for us, wasn't fireworks. It was the steady hum of a well-tuned engine, carrying us through the potholes. But family? That was the fault line. Grandpa Elias Kowalski, the Polish immigrant who'd fled Warsaw in '39 and forged a life welding beams for Bethlehem Steel, was the one constant. He and Grandma settled in Cleveland's Little Poland, raising Dad in a row house that smelled of pierogi and pipe tobacco. After Grandma's stroke took her in '98, Grandpa soldiered on alone, his pension a thin thread holding back the wolves. Dad, ever the dutiful son, promised to handle things when Grandpa's hands started shaking too much for the mill. That's when the care package materialized. A trust fund, $1.2 million Grandpa had squirreled away from overtime and shrewd investments in GM stock during the '70s boom. For his golden years, Dad announced at a family barbecue, clinking glasses of boxed wine like it was a toast to immortality. At first, it seemed legit. Grandpa moved into our Worthington split level, his room tricked out with a hospital bed and a flat-screen tuned to Browns games. Mom fussed over his meals, bland oatmeal laced with Ensure, while Dad managed the finances, spreadsheets glowing on his laptop late into the night. He's family, Dad would say, clapping Grandpa on the back a little too hard. We owe him. I visited when I could, sneaking in pierogi from Sokolowski's that made Grandpa's eyes crinkle like old leather. We'd sit on the back porch, him in his faded Steelers cap, me sketching the fireflies dancing over the koi pond. Ian, kid, he'd grunt, exhaling smoke rings that curled like secrets. Don't let him grind you down. Love's the only steel that don't rust. He knew about Adam before I said a word. Spotted it in the way my voice softened on phone calls, the photos I accidentally left on the coffee table. One humid July afternoon, as cicadas buzzed like faulty wiring, he pulled me aside in the garage, amid shelves of Dad's golf clubs and Mom's canning jars. That boy of yours, Grandpa said, voice low as a confessional. He got a good grip, 'cause this world's full of hands that'll slip. I nodded, throat tight, and he pressed a tarnished street Christopher medal into my palm. Wear it, for the road ahead. The cracks showed slowly, like frost creeping over a windshield. Grandpa's episodes ramped up. Nights he'd wander the neighborhood in his robe, hollering for Grandma in broken Polish. Mom started locking the doors at dusk, her smile thinning to a line. Dad's updates grew vague. Everything's under control, he'd say, eyes flicking to his phone. Then the excuses piled up. We need space for the Reno, Mom sighed when I suggested bringing Adam for Easter brunch. Grandpa's comfortable at the memory care now. Memory care? The place they shipped him to was a converted motel on the edge of town. Rooms smelling of bleach and despair, where aides shuffled him between bingo and bed like a forgotten parcel. I drove up that first weekend, Adam beside me in our rattling Civic, his hand at anchor on my knee. The facility was a squat brick bunker off I-270, chain-link fence rattling in the wind. Grandpa was in a common room, slumped in a vinyl chair, puzzle pieces scattered like shrapnel. His eyes lit when he saw me, faint, but there. Ian, he wheezed, gripping my sleeve. They said it'd be temporary, like a vacation. Adam hung back, respectful, but I saw the fire in his jaw, the way his fists clenched at the neglect. Untrimmed nails, a bruise blooming on Grandpa's wrist from a fall no one mentioned. We fought it then, Adam and I. He dove into the lease, pro bono hours pouring over fine print, uncovering the care fees that funneled straight into my parents' accounts. $8,000 a month for a room with a hot plate? Rent hikes on the family home to offset costs. Dad brushed it off over coffee at Schmidt's Sausage House, his tie too tight. It's complicated, Ian. Taxes, medical bills. He's a burden we can't shoulder forever. Mom teared up, dabbing with a monogrammed hanky. We're doing our best, honey. For everyone. But Adam saw through the veneer, his voice steel when we confronted them in their sunroom. Sunlight slanting through blinds like prison bars. This isn't care, Richard. It's a grift. Elias trusted you with his life savings, and you're bleeding it dry. Dad's face reddened, veins bulging like map lines. You don't get it, Adam. You're not family. This is blood, Harper blood. taking responsibility. The word family twisted in my gut, a barb hooking deep. I stood there, mute, the metal burning in my pocket, as they showed us the door with polite venom. Focus on your own lives, boys. Grandpa's handled. We ramped up visits, Adam and I tag-teaming shifts around our jobs. I'd read Grandpa dog-eared paperbacks, Hemingway, always Hemingway, the old man's North Star, while Adam smuggled in contraband. A flask of Johnny Walker hidden in his messenger bag, contraband smokes for the courtyard. Grandpa perked up around us, stories flowing like the Cuyahoga before it caught fire. Bootlegging hooch during Prohibition, courting Grandma under the Eiffel Tower knockoff at the World's Fair. You too, he'd say, winking through rheumy eyes. Remind me of us. Stubborn as hell, soft as fresh bread. It was in those stolen hours that Adam and I wove tighter. After lights out, we'd drive back to Columbus, his hand on the gear shift, radio humming Springsteen ballads about rust and redemption. One night, fog rolling off the river like ghost breath, he pulled over near the 7071 interchange. The city lights a hazy halo. Ian, he said, turning to me, voice cracking like thin ice. I can't watch this eat you alive. Your folks, they're poison. I broke then, sobs racking me against the dash, his arms pulling me close in the cramped front seat. I'm scared, Adam. What if blood really is thicker? He cupped my face, thumbs brushing salt tracks. Then we're your blood now. Me and Elias. We fight dirty if we have to. The tipping point came in October, leaves turning the Midwest into a bonfire. Grandpa's care fees had spiked again. $12,000 that month, Dad claimed, for specialists. But Adam's digging unearthed the truth. A down payment on a vacation home in Hilton Head, title in my parents' names. Rage boiled in me, hot as molten steel from Grandpa's mill days. We stormed the facility that afternoon, only to find his room stripped, bed made military tight, personal effects in a trash bag by the door. The aide shrugged, clipboard in hand. Discharged this morning. Family signed him out. Discharged. The word echoed like a slammed vault. We raced to Worthington, tires screaming on rain-slicked pavement, Adam white-knuckling the wheel. The split level loomed dark, porch light off like a snuffed candle. Mom answered the bell in pearls and a cashmere sweater, face schooled to sympathy. Oh, Ian, it's handled. He's with us now, full-time care. Dad loomed behind, arms crossed, the envelope nowhere in sight. But Grandpa wasn't with them. He was in the basement rec room, door locked, a makeshift cell with a futon and a space heater humming like a dying bee. We heard him before we saw him. Moans muffled through the particle board, pleas in Polish that clawed at my chest. Adam kicked the door in, splintering the jamb with a boot heel crack that echoed like Judgment Day. There was Grandpa, curled on the floor in urine-soaked sweats, eyes wild as a cornered animal. Ian, they said. The money. His voice trailed to a whisper, but his grip on my arm was iron. That's when Dad charged down, face purpled with fury. Get out. This is private. Adam squared up, a wall of righteous heat. Private? You locked him in like a dog. Richard. For what? A tax write-off. Mom wailed from the stairs, phone in hand, dialing 911 with theatrical sobs. He's confused, officers. He wandered. The cops arrived, badges glinting under street lamps, and it devolved into chaos. Statements taken in the drizzle, Grandpa bundled into an ambulance with a neck brace he didn't need. Adam and I followed to Riverside Methodist, our hands clasped in the ER waiting room, coffee going cold as the night stretched. They're done, Adam whispered fierce. We'll sue, expose it all. But doubt gnawed at me. Their names on the deed, the power of attorney, the web of white-collar lies spun over decades. Grandpa stabilized by dawn, tubes snaking like accusations, but his mind sharpened in the sterile light. Ian, he croaked when we were alone, Adam stepping out for vending machine coffee. The will, safe deposit box, keys in your metal. He tapped the St. Christopher, a secret compartment I'd never noticed. Inside, a brass fob stamped with Huntington Bank numerals. They think they own me, but I own the truth. We retrieved it that afternoon, Adam's nonprofit buddy, a shark of a lawyer named Tessa, tagging along for muscle. The box yielded a manila folder thick as a Bible, ledgers in Grandpa's meticulous script, tracing every dime from the $1.2 million. Withdrawals for care? Funneling to Dad's brokerage, Mom's Botox fund, a Porsche Cayenne in the garage, and the will, freshly notarized 2 weeks prior, witnessed by a parish priest and a mill buddy who'd driven in from Youngstown. It cut my parents out cold, the bulk to a trust for my grandson Ian and his chosen family, Adam Riley, to build a life unburdened by greed. Specifics: the family home deeded to us, proceeds from the investments earmarked for queer youth shelters in Cleveland and Columbus. A codicil, handwritten. To Richard and Linda. You took my body, but never my heart. May this remind you, legacy ain't in ledgers, it's in love. The confrontation was biblical, rain lashing the driveway like Old Testament wrath. We gathered under the sagging awning, me, Adam, Tessa with her briefcase of doom, Grandpa in a wheelchair borrowed from the hospital, blanket tucked like armor. Dad and Mom emerged, umbrellas blooming like accusations, faces gaunt in the sodium glow. What's this? Dad snarled, snatching the photocopy Tessa thrust forward. Justice, Adam said, voice steady as Ohio clay. Elias's justice. Grandpa leaned forward, rain beating on his coat like diamonds of disdain. You promised care, Richard, not a cage. His words hung, heavy as the envelope he'd slammed that first night, though that was weeks ago now, the memory fusing with this storm-swept reckoning. Mom crumpled first, sinking to the wet concrete, sobs mixing with the downpour. We were scared, Daddy. The money, it was for security, for Ian's future. My future. I stepped up, voice breaking but unbroken. You mean the one where you pretend I'm straight? Where Adam's a phase. Grandpa saw me, really saw me. You saw dollar signs. Dad lunged then, fist half raised, but Adam intercepted, a human shield with eyes like emerald fire. Touch him, and you're done. The cops, called by Tessa this time, preemptively, pulled up silent as ghosts, lights off but authoritative. No arrests that night, but the frost deepened. Lawsuits filed by week's end, headlines in the Dispatch whispering of elder abuse in suburbia. The fallout was a slow unraveling, threads of our lives pulling free. Dad quit nationwide in disgrace, slinking to a consulting gig in Dayton. Mom sold her pearls at an estate auction, the Hilton Head dream evaporating like morning mist. They didn't fight the will. Too much exposure, Tessa warned, and Grandpa's codicil was ironclad, laced with affidavits from the facility staff who'd witnessed the bruises. For us, it was rebirth. The trust settled into accounts that breathed easy. Adam expanded his nonprofit, opening a satellite office in Cleveland's Tremont, advocating for elders like Grandpa. I quit freelancing cold pitches, launching a design firm focused on queer-owned businesses, logos that screamed authenticity, not assimilation. We bought a fixer-upper in German Village, brick row house with a widow's walk where we'd watch fireworks over the Scioto, Grandpa's medal dangling from the railing like a talisman. He lived with us those last months, the basement a thing of the past. His room on the second floor, overlooking a garden Adam coaxed from concrete with tomato vines and basil that perfumed the air. Evenings, we'd play euchre at the oak table, Grandpa's laugh rumbling like distant thunder, stories flowing freer now that the chains were snapped. Ian Adam, he'd say, dealing cards with hands steadier than I'd seen in years. You boys are my rewrite, the ending I deserved. His passing came gentle, in April's bloom, heart giving out mid-sentence during a Pirates game on TV. A smile frozen as he cheered a home run. We buried him in Lakeview Cemetery, under Cleveland's slate sky, the plot beside Grandma's with a headstone reading Elias Kowalski, welder of hearts. No family spat at the graveside. My parents sent flowers, and signed, a white flag in carnations. Adam and I stood there after, arms linked, the wind off Lake Erie carrying whispers of pierogi and pipe smoke. He revealed every secret, Adam murmured, head on my shoulder. Ours included. I nodded, the metal cool against my chest. Betrayal had carved us hollow, but love, fierce, chosen, filled the spaces. In America's heartland, where rust meets renewal, we'd forged our own steel. Unbreakable. The months blurred after the funeral. A haze of paperwork and quiet victories that felt like echoes in an empty mill. Tessa's firm handled the probate with the efficiency of a well-oiled lathe, carving through my parents' half-hearted appeals until the gavel fell in our favor. The $1.2 million, whittled by their predations but still substantial, nearly $900,000 after fees and back payments to the facility, flowed into the trust like rainwater into a parched riverbed. Adam and I stared at the statements that first night, sprawled on our new living room rug amid unpacked boxes, the glow of a single lamp casting long shadows. "This could change everything," he said, tracing the numbers with a fingertip, his voice a mix of awe and wariness. "Or nothing," I replied, pulling him closer, our legs tangling like roots seeking soil. Change was a double-edged blade in the Midwest, promising reinvention but often slicing deep with unintended cuts. We'd seen it in the headlines. The Dispatch ran a subdued piece. Family feud over elder fortune ends in court. Careful not to name names but juicy enough for Worthington gossips to connect dots. Old high school acquaintances slid into my DMs. "Heard about your folks, dude." Wild dot, their curiosity laced with schadenfreude. Adam fielded calls from his nonprofit board, offers to scale up pouring in like bids at an auction. But for me, the windfall sat uneasy, a ghost of Grandpa's generosity haunting the corners of our Victorian row house. We dove into renovations to ground ourselves, hammers and paint cans our therapy. Adam, with his poli-sci precision, mapped out the budget on graph paper. Structural fixes first, the sagging porch that creaked like Grandpa's knees, leaky roof patched before the next nor'easter. I handled the aesthetics, sketching mood boards splashed with colors that evoked freedom. Cerulean blues for the kitchen evoking Ohio skies post-storm, terracotta reds for the dining room like the rust on Cleveland's bridges. Weekends became our cathedral, sawdust in our hair, laughter echoing off exposed beams as Adam botched a miter cut and I teased him mercilessly. "Lawyer boy, stick to briefs." I'd quip, stealing a kiss that tasted of sawdust and sweat. But the past didn't stay sawn and sanded. Mom reached out first, a tentative email to my work address in, "Can we talk? Coffee?" The subject line blank as if afraid to commit words to screen. I deleted it twice, thumb hovering over the trash icon like a trigger, before Adam coaxed me into reply. "Neutral ground, Bob Evans off I-270. The chain's fluorescent hum a buffer against intimacy." She arrived early, nursing a decough like it was absolution. Her once flawless bob now streaked with haste-dyed highlights. "You look good, honey," she started, stirring creamer into oblivion. "Happy." I nodded, the vinyl booth sticking to my jeans. "We are. Grandpa made sure of that." The words landed sharper than intended, her spoon clinking like a dropped gauntlet. She deflated, shoulders rounding under a cardigan that swallowed her frame. "We messed up, Ian. Badly. The money. It started as protection. After your dad lost that bonus in '08, the market crash, we panicked. Thought we'd build a safety net. For you too. For me." The coffee turned bitter on my tongue. "By erasing him? Locking him away like he was inconvenient." Her eyes welled, but I pressed on, voice low to avoid the trucker at the next table eavesdropping. "And Adam? You two treated him like an intruder. Grandpa saw us, our future. You saw threats." She reached across, hand hovering before retreating. "I was scared for you. This life. It's hard out there. The looks, the whispers. I wanted you safe, not exposed." The word hung, laced with old prejudices, and something in me fractured. Not rage, but pity, sharp as shattered glass. "Safe? Mom, love isn't a hazard. It's the only shelter that holds." We parted with hugs that felt obligatory, her tears staining my collar, promises of healing time, exchanged like IOUs. Dad was harder, a fortress of silence until Thanksgiving, when he showed at our door unannounced, a foil pan of green bean casserole clutched like a peace offering. Adam let him in, jaw set but civil, excusing himself to the kitchen to check the turkey. The air thickened as Dad perched on our thrift store sofa, the pan sweating condensation onto coasters eyed designed with fractal patterns. "Smells like your grandma's," he grunted, eyes roaming the space. Our framed pride flag from the 19 March, a sketch I'd done of Grandpa mid-laugh. "Nice place. You boys did good." "With his help?" I said, sinking into the armchair, the street Christopher medal a weight in my pocket. He nodded, slow, like conceding a point in arbitration. "Look, Ian, I ain't one for apologies. Never was. But I see it now. The will, it gutted me. Not the money, though God knows we needed it. The words. Betrayers. From my own father." His voice cracked, a fissure in the boardroom armor, and for the first time, I saw the boy he'd been, Elias's shadow, chasing approval in ledgers and ladders. We talked then, haltingly, over Adam's forced normalcy of stuffing and pie. Dad admitted the Porsche was flipped quick, a bad investment. But the real loss was the mirror Grandpa held up. A life measured in assets, not attachments. "I pushed you away 'cause I couldn't face myself," he confessed, fork scraping plate. "Thought if I ignored it, the gay thing, it'd fade. Like a market dip." Adam, from the head of the table, met my eyes with a nod, permission to bridge, not burn. "It's not faded, Dad. It's foundation. And Grandpa, he built on it." By New Year's, fissures formed into fractures. Dad started volunteering at the VFW Hall in Worthington, reading to vets with early-onset dementia, his insurance stories swapped for listening. Mom joined a book club on generational healing, her texts to me shifting from weather reports to questions about Adam's latest case. "Tell him the tenant rights rally sounds vital. Proud of you both." It wasn't absolution. Scars like ours don't fade to pink. They silver over, tough as weld seams. But it was human, messy as a Midwest mud season. And in that mess, I glimpsed the parents I'd mythologized. Flawed, frightened, fumbling toward light. Spring unfurled with purpose. Adam's nonprofit, now bolstered by Grandpa's seed money, launched the Kowalski Initiative, grants for low-income elders facing eviction, named in honor of the man who'd outfoxed his own kin. The kickoff was a modest affair at the Columbus Metropolitan Library, folding chairs in the auditorium, a slideshow of testimonials flickering on a pull-down screen. I emceed, nerves jangling like loose change, but Adam's hand in mine backstage steadied the spin. "You've got this," he whispered, lips brushing my ear. "Elias's fire in your veins." I spoke of legacies not in dollars but in dignity, voice carrying to the back where my parents sat, unobtrusive in the third row, Mom's nod a quiet beacon. The high came in June, Pride Month cresting like a wave. We marched the route from Goodale Park to Nationwide Arena, rainbow flags snapping in the humid breeze, bass from drag queen DJs thumping through my bones. Adam and I led a contingent from the initiative, elders and mobility scooters decked with glitter, their stories mic'd for the crowd, 82 and fabulous. One quipped, waving to cheers. I spotted Dad on the sidelines, videoing with his phone, an awkward thumbs up when our eyes met. Later, at the after-party in Short North Galleries, he clapped Adam on the back, stiff but genuine. "Heard about that evictions win. Sharp work." Adam grinned, slinging an arm around my waist. "Team effort, Richard. Ian's the visionary." Summer deepened the roots. We traveled light. A road trip up the Lake Erie coast. Grandpa's ashes scattered in a private cove near Put-in Bay, the water lapping like applause. Nights in cheap motels, windows open to cricket choruses. We'd make love slow and sure, bodies mapping each other's contours like cartographers of the soul. No rush, no performance. Just us, breath sinking to the rhythm of waves. "Forever's looking good," Adam murmured once, post-dawn, sunlight striping his chest. I traced the freckles, heart full. Yeah, rusty, but real. Yet conflict simmered, unbidden. Adam's board pushed expansion. A Columbus HQ meant longer hours, grants chasing him like hounds. I buried in designs, a big contract with a queer bookstore chain demanding mock-ups till midnight. Cracks spiderwebbed, Snapped words over forgotten groceries, silences stretching like taffy. One August evening, storm clouds bruising the sky, it boiled over in our kitchen, takeout cooling on the island. "You're disappearing, Ian," he accused, eyes stormy. "Into pixels and pastels, while I'm out here fighting real wars. And your Atlas, Adam? Carrying the world while I play house." The words escaped barbed, regret instant. He recoiled, hurt flashing like lightning. "I thought we were in this. Equals." The door slammed behind him, leaving me with thunder and takeout, the metal a cold reminder. Love rusted too if neglected. He returned at midnight, soaked from the deluge, apology in his posture. We met in the foyer, words tumbling. My fear of losing him to the grind, his dread of becoming his dad, distant, duty-bound. "We're not them," I vowed, pulling him to the rug where we'd first tallied the windfall. "We're us, flawed, but fused." Dawn found us entwined, resolutions whispered like prayers, the storm outside spent. Fall brought harvest, literal and figurative. The garden yielded bumper crops, salsa jars lining shelves like trophies. My firm inked the bookstore deal, billboards blooming across I-71 with taglines that sang, "Stories for every shelf, every self." Adam's initiative saved its first Kowalski house, a duplex in Franklinton for LGBTQ plus seniors, ribbon cutting with local Pauls and a choir belting over the rainbow. Grandpa would have grinned, pipe clenched, "That's my boys." But the true climax brewed in November, frost nipping heels as election fever gripped the nation. Adam's work intersected politics, testifying before city council on housing inequities, his passion reigniting old family fault lines. Dad called voice-edged, saw the news, stirring the pot again. It escalated to dinner, our table a neutral zone turned tinderbox. Dad railed against activist overreach, Mom mediating with mashed potatoes, while Adam parried with stats on homelessness spikes post-obs. I mediated torn, until Dad's barb landed. "You boys got Elias's money. Live quiet. Not this noise." The room iced over. Adam's fork clattered. "Quiet? Like you kept Dad." "Grandpa. Quiet in that basement." Dad flushed. Mom gasped, and I erupted. "Enough. This isn't about votes or vendettas. It's about right." Grandpa taught me that, blood or chosen, stand tall. Silence swallowed us, heavy as uneaten pie, until Dad pushed back, chair scraping. "Maybe you're right, son. Maybe I forgot how." He left early, but the seed sprouted. Weeks later, a check arrived, modest, from Dad's consulting cut. For the initiative, note clipped. For the quiet fighters. R. Mom followed with volunteer hours, reading to the duplex residents, her voice softening stories of her own youth in the 70s, pre-AIDS awakening. As winter loomed, Adam and I climbed the Widow's Walk one eve, city twinkling below like a promise kept. "We made it," he said, breath fogging glass. I leaned into him, metal glinting. Through the rust, secrets revealed, betrayals burned to ash. We'd welded our world, strong as Cleveland steel. Winter clamped down hard that year, the kind of Ohio cold that seeps into bones like regret, turning breath to ghosts in the air. Our German village home hunkered against it, chimney puffing defiance. The duplex across town a beacon for those the frost bit deepest. Adam threw himself into the holidays with fervor, stringing lights along the row houses, organizing a silver rainbow feast for the initiative's elders, turkey and tamales mingling scents in the community hall. I designed the invites, holographic snowflakes over pride stripes, but my mind wandered to Grandpa's last Christmas. Tinsel on the futon, his frail hands wrapping a pocket knife for Adam, engraved for the cuts that matter. The knife came out that night, post-dinner. As snow swirled outside like confetti from a somber parade, we'd gathered a small crew. Tessa with her wife, a couple from Adam's board, my parents, tentative but present, perched at the end of the folding table. Dad carved the bird with uncharacteristic care, Mom passing cranberry sauce with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Toast circled, to resilience, to reinvention. Then Adam pulled the knife from his pocket, blade catching lamplight, and passed it to Grandpa's empty chair, now a placeholder with his Steelers cap draped over the back. "To Elias," he said, voice thick, "who cut through the bullshit." Eyes misted, nods rippled. But Mom's hand trembled on her glass. "He'd be proud, boys. Of this, all of it." Her gaze flicked to Dad, a silent cue, and he cleared his throat, napkin twisting. Adam. "We've been talking. Therapy, actually. Group for families like, well, us." The admission hung, vulnerable as exposed wiring. "Turns out we were running scared. From you, from change. But Elias's will? It was a wake-up. We want in if you'll have us." The offer landed soft. No strings, but my pulse thrummed caution. Adam squeezed my knee under the table, his touch a Morse code of your call. I swallowed, the room's warmth pressing close. "In how?" Dad met my eyes, steady for once. "Grandkids, maybe not blood, but the kind you build. Babysitting shifts, holidays without the ledger. And the initiative? Count us as donors. Regular." It wasn't a fairy tale bow, but a bridge rickety, rain-slicked, but spanning the chasm. We accepted, tentative handshakes sealing it over pie, laughter bubbling as Tessa regaled with probate war stories. That night, abed with snow muffling the world, Adam traced my ribs. "Think it'll stick?" I pondered, staring at frost-laced windows. "If we do, one plank at a time." Spring thawed more than ground. The initiative bloomed, funds from Grandpa's trust seeding a crisis hotline, manned by volunteers including Mom, her voice a surprising balm for callers grappling isolation. Dad tagged along to council meetings, his insurance savvy translating to grant proposals that landed five-figure boosts. Adam and I watched from the wings sometimes, hands clasped in the gallery, pride swelling not just for the wins, but the mending. A family reforged, welds visible but holding. My firm took off parallel, clients flocking for branding that breathed authenticity. A distillery in Athens touting queer-crafted spirits. Murals for the Columbus AIDS Task Force splashed across billboards. Late nights in the home office. Adam would bring tea, perching on the desk's edge with that grin that unraveled me. "World changer," he'd tease, stealing a sip. But success whispered doubts. Was I chasing validation, filling voids my parents left? One dusk, sketching logos by the bay window, I voiced it, pencil snapping midstroke. "Am I enough, Adam? Without the windfall, the winds." He knelt, taking my hands, eyes fierce as forsythia in bloom. "You were always enough. The rest? It's gravy on the pierogi." We made plans then, grounded ones. A sabbatical hike on the North Country Trail, just us and backpacks, no briefs or billboards. The trail wound through Michigan's up, pines towering like sentinels, lakes mirroring skies unmarred, days blurred in rhythm, boots crunching duff, campfires crackling tales of future follies. Adopting a rescue mutt named Kowalski, maybe fostering teens from the shelters. Nights under stars thick as promises, his head on my chest, heartbeat sinking to Loon's calls. "This," he murmured once, fingers lacing mine, "is the real legacy." Back in Columbus, summer sizzled with milestones. Pride 26 was electric, the route swelling with marchers. Our contingent tripled, elders waving from floats, my designs emblazoned on banners fluttering like liberated flags. Dad marched a block behind, sign hoisted high. Proud ally, late bloomer. Mom linked arms with a trans resident from the duplex, their laughter cutting through chants. Adam and I led, hands high, the crowd's roar a tide lifting us. At the festival, under the arch's rainbow wash, he dropped to one knee. Not proposal, but pledge. A ring from a local jeweler, hammered copper etched with coordinates of our first bench by the Olentangy. "Not marriage, not yet," he said, sliding it on. "But forever, rusty edges and all." Tears blurred the throng, cheers erupting as I pulled him up, kiss sealing it amid whoops and whistles. My parents, from the sidelines, captured it on phone. Mom's sob half-laugh, Dad's nod profound. Later, beers in hand at a rooftop bar, Dad clapped my shoulder.
Elias D. approve.
Hell, he'd demand cake. We toasted then, to secrets spilled, to betrayals transmuted to bridges. Autumn wove warnings, though, health scares reminding mortality's tick. Adam's dad flew in from Dublin, frail from chemo. His Bible verses swapped for questions about the lad's work. Forgiveness flowed halting, over Guinness at the Brazen Head, the elder Riley admitting his own detours. Love's a long road, Ian. Potholes aplenty. Grandpa's medal, passed to Adam now, dangled from his keychain, a talisman for the miles. As leaves turned pyre gold, the true test crested. A class action suit against the facility, Tessa leading the charge with our testimony as spearhead. Depositions dragged, dredging the basement horror. Grandpa's pleas, the locked doors creak. My parents testified too, voices cracking on stands. We failed him. Failed you. The settlement poured restitution into the trust, but victory tasted bittersweet. Justice a cold comfort for lost time. Winter circled back, softer this time. Snow blanketing the garden in hush. We hosted solstice, fire pit crackling, elders sharing carols in Polish and Spanish. My parents arrived with pierogi, homemade, lopsided but loving. Dad's laugh booming as he botched a polka with Tessa's wife. Adam and I slipped away to the widow's walk, city aglow below, his ring catching starlight. Every secret revealed, he whispered. And we're still standing. I nodded, wind whispering Grandpa's gravel. Unbreakable. Betrayal's blade had scarred. But in the forge of feeling, dramatic, suspenseful, raw, we'd emerged romantic, resilient, human. In America's vast, veined heart, love wasn't a detour. It was the map, the mileage, the homeward pull.